I want to talk about long weapons and the benefit of long weapons. Now, in reality, most of the long weapons that we have from the Ryukyu Islands are not going to be something that we carry around on a daily basis, although you can actually use a Jo as a walking stick. And I have known and personally been able to take a Jo on an airplane post 9/11 by just putting a rubber stop on it and using it as a walking stick. But the benefit of the long weapons is their reach. That is the benefit. So Taika, one of Taika's pet peeves was when people would grab a bow and they would whip around and do an entire kata and their hands didn't move. They stayed in the center. And even Jo, some people, seems like people are a little bit more able to move their hands on a Jo, but for some reason when they touch a bow, it's like there's glue on their hands and they can't get away from that center position. Taika would say that if people move their hands with Jo, but they don't with bow, when you're stuck in the center with a bow, that's your range. If you're out here with a Jo, your range is actually longer because you're fighting somebody that's stuck in the center. So don't get stuck in the center. So how do we do that? Well, probably can't see it, but all the Jo that I make for training in the dojo all have a little groove. You might be able to see this one a little bit better. There's a groove right in the center. So that's a little tactile spot. As we do training, students feel their hands going back and forth across that. Outside of that, if you don't have that, painter's tape is your friend. It's cheap, it's easy. It's easy to get the sticky residue off later on when you train past this problem that a lot of people have. With a Jo, typically I find center, put a hand, and put a piece of tape. Put a hand and put a piece of tape. So when I am doing my Jo strikes, I want my students to not only pass the center, but at least one hand, if not, I'm actually ending up two hands past that center. But they'll feel that tape and they'll squeeze and they'll usually end up almost two hands past it. So that's what we want. We want to be able to slide, change our hand positions to have range as we do things. I don't want to do any kata where I'm stuck here in the center. I can do some little whirly motions and what, but I don't have any range. If my hands are stuck here in the center, then I've got about 18 inches with this particular Jo. This is probably shorter than a lot of you train with. With a bow, I like to find center, but then I like to divide it up. So I have 4 sections of my bow. 4 sections. So now you see as I slide, I feel my hand go past that, I feel my hand go past that, I feel my hand go past that. So I'm getting range as I do these motions. I am able to teach my students to get that slide motion by putting that extra tape on there. An alternative to that are these lovely screw together extreme martial arts The only thing good that I think has ever come out of extreme martial arts is this. So what this is, I bought 2 of these graphite, they're really light, they're just horridly light, blue, red, and then of course the other half of this was red and blue. And then I bought a black and yellow one, and then I cross-pollinated the 2 to where now I have 4 colors. So I can tell my students, I want them striking, they're in the yellow zone, they're in the red zone, yellow, red, yellow, red. So they're learning to do all these motions with half of their bow forward. If half that bow is forward, that's about 3 feet, depending on 3 shaku, depending on the length of your bow, obviously. But that's 3 foot in front of your lead hand. If you're bow versus tanbo, bow versus jo, you're going to have that length advantage, which is kind of the reason for using the bow to begin with. So just as an example, I won't go through the whole thing, but if I'm doing bow kihon, I drop down, I'm in that red zone, I'm in the yellow zone, red zone, yellow zone. It makes it then very easy to teach. Obviously, I want to get them past this hurdle of sliding and then get them to a proper weapon, not this piece of junk, but it is a very good visual aid to get your students to slide and get proper hand positions and learn that sliding motion.